Hello, this is a tutorial on a crochet dice tray. It is a pretty easy pattern, quite good for beginners. So we're going to start off with a magic circle, and to do that we wrap the yarn around our forefinger and middle finger, overlapping itself to make this X shape. Once we've done that, we're slipping our hook under the first half of the X, and then latching onto that back half, pulling under everything. And then while holding onto that loop on our hook, we can slip our hands out and that magic circle keeps its shape. And then from here we're going to make 3 chains. And to do that we're going to yarn over. So putting the yarn over our hook from behind and pulling that through the loop on our hook. So I'll show you again. We're yarning over from behind our hook, and then we're pulling that through the loop on our hook. Again, yarn over, pull that through the loop on our hook. And that's how you chain. We've done 3 chains. Next we're going to do a double crochet. And so we yarn over, then we insert our hook into the magic circle, grab that yarn to pull it back through where we came from. And now we should have 3 loops on our hook, as you can see. Now we're going to yarn over again, and we're pulling that bit through 2 loops on our hook. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. And that's how you double crochet. So again, yarn over, insert your hook into the magic circle, pull through the yarn back from where you came from, out of the magic circle. You have 3 loops on your hook. Now you're going to yarn over again, and then pull that bit through 2 loops on your hook, and then again yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and that's a double crochet. So counting that first set of chain 3s, or 3 chains, we have 3 double crochet. So we're counting those chain 3s as a double crochet. And now we're going to continue by doing 2 chains. So 1, and again that's by yarning over, just pulling through that 1 loop. 2 chains. And now we're going to do another double crochet, yarning over into the circle, pull the yarn back through the circle, and yarn over again. Pull through 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Another double crochet, yarn over, into the circle, latch onto that yarn again, back through the circle, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2. And now 1 more double crochet. Then 2 chains. Okay, so we just did 3 double crochet, and that's what we call a cluster. So we have 2 clusters so far. We're going to make another one. So 1 double crochet, 2, 3. And that makes for our 3rd cluster. And now at this point you can pull on that short tail in the magic circle to close it. Just a little bit. And we're going to continue with 2 chains. Now we're going to cluster again. That cluster means 3 double crochet in a row. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Again, we're going to chain 2. and cluster again. So we're just repeating that process around. So this will be our 5th cluster. Two double crochet and 3. After that cluster, we will do 2 chains like before, and we're going to do our final cluster. So round 1, we should have a total of 6 clusters, or 6 bunches of 3 double crochet, including that chain 3 in the beginning. So we're going to finish up by doing 1 chain, and we want to join the round by slip stitching into the beginning chain, into that 3rd one, and we'll count them, these little V shapes, by 1, 2, 3. We want that 3rd one, so we're going to insert the hook into that 3rd chain, and yarn over from the other side, pull through, and then pull that through the loop on our hook. And everything is joined. Now we begin round 2 by chaining 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And that will mark the beginning of our cluster. So we need to do another 2 double crochet, and we're going to double crochet into that gap where we started our chain, or into that gap where we joined the 1st round. And that's our 1st cluster. Then we're going to chain 2 times and cluster again into that same gap. So again, a cluster is just 3 double crochet in a row. Alright, so that's our first little corner done. We're going to follow this little sequence all around the 2nd round. So cluster, chain 2, cluster. We'll do that a total of 6 times, so that's our first corner. Now we begin the next corner by doing a cluster. And then chain 2 and cluster. Okay, so that's our 2nd corner. We're going to make a total of 6 corners. It's just repeating ourselves with a cluster, chain 2, cluster. So do that into all of the spaces available to make our new corners. I'm going to show you one more time. We're clustering into that next gap straight away, then chain 2 and cluster again. So repeat this all the way around. I'll meet you at the end of round 2. So after you've repeated those steps, your project should look something like this. It's symmetrical, 6 corners, 6-sided, a total of 12 clusters. So again, we need to join the rounds, and it's the same thing as last time, where we slip stitch into that 3rd chain from the beginning. So just counting the side, these little bumps, 1, 2, 3, insert our hook, yarn over, and pull that yarn through again that loop on our hook. Now, unlike last time, we don't stop here. We keep on slip stitching into the following stitches. So those are the double crochet from round 2. So under that little V, or those 2 strands, so we're just inserting our hook there, yarning over, pull through, and because this is a slip stitch, pull that through the loop on your hook. Okay, so repeat that step on the next double crochet. Insert, yarn over, pull through the loop. And one more time, we're going to do a slip stitch into that corner gap there, like so. And at this point I'm going to color change. You don't have to color change, but I prefer to do it that way. If you'd like to learn, I will also be showing you how to do that. So after cutting your yarn, you'll insert your hook into where you last cut your yarn and cast off, and then you'll lay the new color over your hook with the short tail on the back side of your crochet hook, and you're going to pull that through the corner while holding onto your new yarn with your left hand on the back side of the project. And if I'm not holding it with my left hand, I'm holding it with my right hand using my forefinger on the crochet hook. That'll help me yarn over and then pull that through the loop on the hook. And now I'm going to twist the short tail to overlap the long yarn. I'm going to yarn over again and pull through. So I've basically just chained 3 times there. And overlapping it just makes sure the ends are secure. Okay, so that marks the beginning of our first cluster of round 3. To continue our cluster, we're going to do those other 2 double crochet. Now, unlike the last couple of rounds, instead of doing 2 chains in between clusters on the corners, we're just doing 1. So now every corner will be a cluster, chain 1, cluster. Okay. Like that. And now that's how we will be doing all of our corners from now on. So in between the corners we have these other gaps where we don't do that sequence in. It's actually just going to be 1 singular cluster. So every gap in between those corners is just 1 cluster. Now that we're at the other corner, we're going to cluster. Chain 1 and cluster. This is our corner sequence. That won't change across all of the rounds. I'll show that just one more time, and then I'll let you carry on with it, with the pattern. So cluster straight away into that gap, because it's not a corner. And now we do our corner sequence of 1 cluster, chain 1, and then a cluster into that same corner gap. Okay, and that's how it should look. So just repeat yourself all the way around. So at the end of round 3, your project should look like this. Still symmetrical, 6-sided, 6 corners, and a total of 18 clusters in this round. And like the last time, we're joining by slip stitching into that 3rd chain. And we are also going to keep slip stitching until we get to that corner gap. So slip stitch into that double crochet, slip stitch into the next one, and then slip stitch into the corner gap. Now you can cut your yarn here if you want to color change, or you can skip this part if you're just doing the singular color. Now we start round 4. Like before, put your new yarn over your hook, short end on the back side, hold on to the short end with your left hand, pull that through, corner, yarn over, and pull through that loop, twist your short tail, to overlap the long tail before you yarn over again and pull through. Basically chaining onto the corners, right? So we've made our 3 chains. That's how we begin every round. And we're going to complete the cluster with another 2 double crochet. Okay, now we're going to chain 1 and then cluster into the same space. If we take a look at our project, we'll notice that there are 2 spaces separating the corners now. So what this means is that we're going to cluster into each space in between the corners. There'll be now 2 clusters separating every corner. So cluster straight away into that gap. Then cluster straight away again into the next gap. And now we're going to do our corner sequence, which is that cluster, chain 1, cluster, like so. Okay. And we're going to repeat that all the way around until we get to the end of round 4. So I'll show you one more time. Cluster straight away into the next space, and cluster into the next space. And begin your corner sequence with that cluster, chain 1, cluster. Okay, so we're just repeating ourselves all the way around. I'll meet you at the end. At the end of round 4, your project should look something like this. Now we want to join our sides, and once again, that's just slip stitching into the 3rd chain from the beginning of that round. And I'm just going to keep slip stitching until I get to that corner gap once again. I'm going to change colors. Now we will be starting our last round. We'll do that by chaining basically onto that corner where we cut the yarn 3 times. And now we're going to cluster. We'll complete our first cluster, chain 1, and then cluster again. Now, stepping back from our work, we can see that separating our corners are 3 spaces this time. So there are 3 spaces between our corners now. So we're clustering into each of those spaces. So cluster straight away. Cluster into the next space. And then cluster into that other space. Now that we're at the corner, we do our corner sequence, which of course is cluster, chain 1, cluster. Now, unlike before, I'm going to stop here. Just repeat what I did all the way around. It'll take me too long to show it again. Otherwise, you can just replay the video. But just doing that same pattern all the way around our last round. So clustering into those side spaces, and then when we get to the corners, it's the cluster sequence which is 1 cluster, chain 1, then cluster again. Now that we're at the end of our round, we're going to do the same thing as before and slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the beginning. And I will continue to slip stitch until I get to that corner, and then I'll cut the yarn and cast off. And this is what your dice tray should look like. So now we want to sew in these corners, and that's going to make our walls. And to do that, we're going to tie our yarn onto the corners, the corner spaces, and pretty much do what we do when we color change. So basically just chaining onto there, like so. Then I'm going to insert my hook into a double crochet stitch from one side, and then the opposing stitch I'm going to put my hook through as well. And then I'm yarning over, pulling through both of those stitches. I have 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over again, pull through those 2 loops on the hook. Okay, so I'm going to do that 3 times. So insert my hook under that V, a little stitch, and do the same on the opposite side. And yarning over those 2 loops. I'm going to yarn over again, pull through 2, and that's a single crochet. I'm going to do that one more time. You can also just use a darning needle for this step, but personally I just like to use a crochet hook. So now that we've sewn across 3 stitches, or single crocheted across 3 stitches, we can cut our yarn. Now we're going to hide the tail into our project. And there are a number of ways to do that. I like to start by weaving the tail in and out of the stitches we've just made. So across those, well, under those single crochet stitches. And then I'm also going to weave it into the spine of the clusters we've done from that round. So in and out behind the spine. Probably would be easier if I used a smaller hook, but we are managing. And then in this little puffy area here, I'm also hiding the tail. Could probably cut your tail off around here, since this particular project doesn't see a lot of stretch like say a jumper would, so it's not necessarily pulling that tail around and risking unraveling the project. But just for my peace of mind, I like to try and sew in a little bit extra. You'll see I'll also go to the front of these stitches. I'll use a smaller hook to do that. Okay, so your corner should look something like this. And already you can kind of see that by sewing that in, the sides are kind of rising to make a wall. So if you do that on every corner, then it should look something like this. That is a crochet dice tray. Now I don't have dice to really show how this works, but I do have a button. So, can confirm. It's very good at catching buttons. There we go. And just one more time. Yeah. Good button catcher. Also doubles as a pretty great coaster, if you're interested. Now, you'll notice that the walls are a little bit low. That might not suit your needs, in which case there are a couple of things you can do. So, for one, you can do what I did on this other dice tray and sew in more stitches on the corners. So I did 4 stitches together instead of 3, like I showed in this video, and that made the walls higher. So the more stitches you sew, the higher the walls. Now the other thing you can do to customize your dice tray is, if you recognize the pattern, then you can keep making that tray even bigger. So beyond the scope of what we did in this video, and that looks like this. It's a pretty big dice tray. I'm not too sure what kind of purpose a tray this big would serve, but hey, it's here. Yeah, so this is what happens when you keep making that tray bigger. More surface area, and of course I've also sewn in even more stitches to make those walls taller too. So that's how you crochet a dice tray.